otherwise known as the Oscars of Education. The journey of DIMFF started in 2015, 7 years ago, as CinemaScope Mobile Film Competition, CMFC. It has since evolved into an outreach program at the University of Liberal Arts, Bangladesh, Media Studies and Journalism Department. With the passing of each year, DIMFF's acclaim and accomplishment is growing, and filmmakers from around the globe are relishing this new platform to uphold their voices. For today's session of the masterclass, our instructor is Andy Burgess, and the topic is documentary storytelling for online platforms. Here we welcome our instructor. To talk
Hi,
about,
everyone.
hi, yeah. So I'll give a brief introduction about our instructor today. Andy Burgess is a digital creator based in East London, focusing on YouTube documentaries. His bespoke social contents are crafted storytelling with beautiful visuals produced to retain online engagement and educate audiences. He's also the creator and host of Red Bull Origins, an explainer series that looks into the history of extreme sports, the communities behind them, and how they affected today's cultures. Andy worked with brands from Samsung, Ford, Boosted Board to Joby, the BBC, Terra Mater, the Red Bull. Creating content for our speaking at event training sessions is where he shares his insights and knowledge on the platform space since 2018. Now, for the dear audience, we have some of the ground rules mentioned in our masterclass. So the masterclass session will be held for 45 minutes. During this time, please keep your microphone turned off, but do not forget to turn on your videos because it will keep the session engaging and lively. No question answer is going to be taken while our instructor is giving his talk. If he needs your participation, you may respond to that. We will have a different time session, 50 minutes, for audience to ask questions. While doing so, please raise your hands. It will make us easier for notifying. Thank you so much. Now hand over the floor to Andy Burgess.
Hi, thank you so much for the introduction. That was amazing. Yeah, it's really great to be here with you guys at this session as well. Is there a way that I can see the screens you mentioned? Is there something I need to do on Zoom just so I can be more engaged as well with everybody? Because I can't see if people can see me. Is my camera on?
Yes, your camera is on. You're audible enough. We can hear you properly.
Okay, great. Okay, awesome. Okay. Oh, I see everyone now. Okay. Oh, okay. Amazing. This is awesome. Okay, guys, thank you so much for being here today in this session. I'm really excited to be giving this talk to you guys today in Bangladesh. I'm very sad that I can't be there with you in person. I last was in Bangladesh in 2019. I came over and we were telling some really great stories and traveling between universities in Dhaka, Chittagong, and we went up to Rajshahi, and it was just amazing. Incredible people. I really want to come back. There's lots of stories that I want to tell in Bangladesh. I'm starting a new YouTube channel that's all about humanity understood through geography. So if you guys have any stories around geography, humans, civilization, geopolitics, climate, solutions, any of those things, hit me up on Instagram, let me know. I'd love to hear all those things. But I think you guys gave a great rundown of who I am. I make documentaries on the internet. I started out just making videos with my phone on Snapchat. That's kind of where it all began. I was just making daily vlogs. I didn't go to film school. I didn't study film, but I was always creative. And I didn't know how to use a camera until about 2018. But all I had was my phone and a passion to make videos. So one day I was on a trip in Switzerland and I decided that I just wanted to capture this trip that I was on. And all I had was an iPhone at the time. So I just picked it up and started making videos. And from there, this obsession just came over me and it expanded and expanded. And I got to keep traveling the world, making different videos. And over that time, it just became, I was seeing new places, hearing new stories. And it was really at the start of 2018, and Bangladesh was a big part of it, where I was meeting so many incredible people and seeing lots of different stories that I was like, okay, these stories are way bigger than just myself. Perhaps the videos I make could explain different topics and situations across the world to maybe a Western audience that don't know a lot about it, but I can just be their guide. So instead of me being the focus in like the vloggy type content I was doing, I changed it into a more documentary format where I was the guide explaining a story, bringing people through it. And definitely the era beginning of 2019 was that changed a lot. So today I kind of want to talk to you guys about internet storytelling and in particular in the documentary realm that I do on YouTube. And I think the best way to do that is going to be to actually share a bit of a video I made last September. I'm going to show you the story outline. I'm then going to show you the script, and I'm going to kind of talk about how this story came together. So the piece in question is a piece that I shot in Lebanon. It's titled, I can't actually remember what it's titled. It's something about Lebanon's waste crisis. Lebanon has a big waste crisis that's gone on for a long time, and there's many factors involved. In particular, we were looking at the environmental impacts of this and solutions around it, how this can potentially change. So it was quite a big topic. And for this, it was about a week and a half of research. I then spent 7 days in Lebanon reporting on this, and then about 4 weeks building out the video and the script afterwards. So I think the best thing to do is I'm going to attempt to share my screen, and I'm going to play like the first minute and a half. I'll play you the intro so you guys get a sense of this piece. And then we're going to break it down, and then I'm going to go through it. And then at the end, we will do a Q&A. You can ask me any questions about that or anything else. So here we go. I'm going to try. I don't use Zoom a lot, so I'm going to see if I can share my screen. I hope I can. Okay, great. Can somebody let me know if they can they see the screen at all? Is there a video? Okay, sure. Okay. Apparently you guys can now see the screen. I hope this is okay. I'm just going to play just like everything is like maybe a minute and a half of this video. And somebody let me know if you can't hear it as well.
Get closer, you'll see that it isn't a mound of earth at all. It's a mound.
Starting again.
From a distance, this mound of earth situated in the port of Tripoli in Lebanon looks harmless. But if we get closer, you'll see that it isn't a mound of earth at all. It's a mountain of trash. It's a mountain of trash that they've just dumped soil on top of, and it stinks. And next to it, the second pile is starting to build up, with a very high chance that it will expand into the sea.
This is ridiculous. And we just saw a dog playing with trash.
A mindset that has been widely adopted by Lebanese officials for decades is out of sight, out of mind.
A massive explosion has torn through the Lebanese capital.
As a result, in 2020, 2,700 metric tons of a highly explosive material called ammonium nitrate that were locked away unsecured in a warehouse caught fire and exploded. The blast killed at least 200 people and severely injured thousands. But the explosion also left a trail of destruction across Beirut, with 800,000 tons of waste and toxic chemicals scattered into the air, soil, and water. It was the final straw for an already struggling country. A Human Rights Watch report found that Beirut's landfills had reached full capacity at the end of 2019 and were on the verge of collapse. But scientists have established that from the 85% of waste going to landfills, only 10% needs to, and the rest could be recycled or composted. So how did it come to this? And what solutions does this fractured country have left?
Okay, I'm going to pause it there. Hopefully you guys could hear that. And afterwards I can share a link so you guys can watch the full video. It's about 8-9 minutes long, but hopefully that gives you a setup of what this piece was. It's kind of like Lebanon has been like overrun with all these issues. They had that massive explosion in 2020, which was devastating. The economy has fallen apart. And on top of that, there's this huge waste crisis that doesn't actually need to be there. Like hypothetically, they could all these solutions, they could actually just recycle a lot of this. And it was like telling these issues. And I guess a big part of my videos and what I think makes them stand out and them be engaging is they look quite nice. There's lots of sound effects, there's graphics, but I'm here to tell you that those things kind of come over time and that they are just the top layer to make something look nice. Story is king. Story is absolutely everything that you should be focused on. I keep using Bangladesh as my example because I'm here with you guys talking about that, talking about these stories. But previous to that, my phone is what I used most of the time. It was on that trip that I started using a camera. But all these stories can be told with a phone. It's just like the story is the most important. Whatever you have to capture it, great, work with it. Like now I use cameras and drones to show these different angles, but that's just like additional stuff. Like focus on the story. That is the most important thing. That's what people will engage with, is the people in that piece. And I'll kind of go through some of these bits. Like some of the visuals are important, but how you capture them is different. So I'm now going to share with you my script and my document. It's like how this process started, right? So let's try this again. Okay. I think it's in my Chrome browser. Okay, right. So you guys should now be able to see my script. I hope you can. So, okay, oh no, that's a different document. Okay, I have lots of documents here. Okay, great. You guys should now be able to see it. So this is my initial script. What I did, I produced this video with Terra Matter, who are a YouTube channel. It's all about sustainability, environmental solutions, and this was the story we're telling. And before I wrote this script, this is my script outline, which we'll get to. Sorry, this is the script. But before I went, I had a script outline, an idea of what I wanted to cover. And this is kind of it. And this will change because I haven't been on the ground yet. I haven't been to Lebanon. This is through the premise of, okay, we want to tell this story, but like it could completely change depending on what I see when I'm in Lebanon. There's lots of factors at play, but what I want you guys to take away from a story outline, these are really important to start with because you need an idea of what it is you want to cover, and things can change. But the most important things to remember are the beats within this, and especially on YouTube. So when you're starting with a script, like you need a hook. You really need something that will engage somebody straight away. Like, what is that in your story? And those things evolve for us. Originally, it was going to be that blast. It was going to be the explosion in Beirut. And then we talked about it a lot. We're like, okay, that is something a worldwide audience will know. But then as the story progressed, we're like, okay, that's not really that relevant to our story. It's part of it and it's added to it, but that isn't it. We were then going to show there's lots of like polluted beaches and trash, and it was going to be that. Eventually, it's the clip you see at the start, which is the mountain of trash. That big hill that is just, it's been hidden. It's just garbage, and they've put soil on top of it. That only came out when I was on the ground shooting in Lebanon. A friend of our producer basically was like, hey, there's this mountain of trash. Would he like to see it? To me, that was the key visual. That was everything. Like, you see this, it looks like a hill, looks nice. You get closer. Oh no, it's not. It's a problem. So that was our hook. That was our intro hook to set up the bigger problem, because a lot of this story is embedded in political, governmental issues, which aren't that interesting to an online audience. I find that kind of fascinating. Before I went to Lebanon, in this research phase, before I went, I was reading lots of books, lots of articles, trying to understand the political landscape of Lebanon. And we'll get into how that factored into the video in a little bit. But that was just important for me, for the audience on watching a YouTube video, like that maybe have never heard of Lebanon or know very little about it. Are they that interested in that? Maybe not. So you have to really hook them, work out what that hook is, I would argue something with this video that we could have improved on is that hook, that intro that I showed you should have been way shorter. I reckon 30 seconds would have been more ideal for a YouTube audience. So anyway, you hook them, we give these stats, we talk about how this explosion basically made the whole situation worse in Lebanon. And then you get into a first re-engagement, which is you are re-engaging the audience on what is actually happening. You have the hook, we're re-engaging you to say, okay, in 2015, these landfills started to really fill up, and in 2019, they were on the verge of collapse. This is like a really long version. I think the green, everything that I've marked green is actually what I used in the script, but these were just like bullet points. And then we get into setting up the story. A shorter version of this, which is like what I followed as I was on the ground, was here, right? Blast visuals, aftermath, government response, reasons why in history. So this is kind of the setup. I'm now explaining to you how Lebanon got into this place. And this is where we get into, in the video, we start to look at why this happened. And I then try to talk about the political bit. Okay, so here you'll also see notes from my producer here, Ava. The great thing with Terra Matter, I have people to bounce these stories off. If you can do that with your colleagues or perhaps your like fellow students, that's amazing. Having different people's points of view, like for example, I started looking into the war. We have to make an 8-9 minute video. We can't go too deep in the weeds about this. We can't, this is not an explainer about the political landscape of Lebanon. It's about the environmental crisis. So I had to condense this huge paragraph, which I'll show you, into a very small amount and work out how we visually do that. And that comes in like the edit. We can get into that. After you've set up the video, so the first couple of minutes, you need to re-engage an audience again. It's all about hooking people. Like when you're on your phone, you have so many distractions. We can't stay focused for more than a couple of minutes. If you're using Snapchat or Facebook or TikTok or Instagram, all these apps are they're fighting for your attention. When I used to do Snapchat, I was working out how do I keep someone's attention for this long? And now we're making longer videos about like documentary issues and journalistic stories. Like, okay, how do I engage a younger audience? You know, because these videos are ideally for people who are 18 to 34. It's kind of like our like demographic. So we have to re-engage people again, looking at what's like another thing that could hook people. And then we move into our climax of the piece and like what's actually happening on the ground. Like these are what the politicians are saying. What does that actually look like when we are in Lebanon? And at this point, I started to interview lots of people on the ground. You'll see if you watch the full video. I really encourage you. It's a really great piece. And then we move into our third re-engagement and round off. So this is the point where we've given you all the information. We've shown you the kind of like the struggles and the issues that are on the ground. But what is the hope, right? I think the best, every story needs a revelation. It needs a resolution and a revelation. You need to see something else. And our revelation was, we met this NGO, a non-profit company separate from the government, who are helping people recycle in Lebanon. In Lebanon, there isn't recycling. And it's this small initiative, and they set up an app in Beirut, and you just go around and they collect your recycling for you, and they recycle a lot of the waste in Beirut and in the wider country. And I spent an afternoon with these guys, and we spoke to them, and it was really amazing. And it was really great to hear sort of potential solutions. So that is kind of an idea I had before. I knew that I wanted to meet these people. I had this basic outline here. And then I had a fixer, a local producer on the ground who was with me. And for him, I had this document here of the people I wanted to interview. I knew that fish were being affected by the pollution, so I wanted to meet a fisherman. I wanted to meet some people at an NGO who are clearing up the beaches. The beaches in Lebanon are always covered in trash and rubbish, and then lots of people come over and clear them up. And it's just it's an ongoing cycle, as you saw a little bit in the video. So I wanted to talk to all these people. And then I also had a list of the visual imagery I wanted to capture, because this is a video. It's what I do, is I'm making a video. So I just had a list of like, these are like basically all my ideas down on paper that I think we need to get. And Giorgio, our producer, my friend who lives in Lebanon, he was like, okay, let's see what we can do. And then he helped structure my trip. And then I went to Lebanon, and then I'm reporting on the ground. And something that's, I'm going to just stop sharing my screen for a second so I can talk about that with you guys. So that's like, I've done my research, I've prepped, I'm now on the ground in Lebanon. Local help is the best thing that you can have, and it's fantastic. And I'm sure you guys know all about this. I'm going to give you guys another example from when I was in Bangladesh. Our first trip, the first place we stopped was in Chittagong. And from there, me and my friend Yusuf, he's a mobile journalist, used to work for CNN, is now part of #OurStories. You may know them. We wanted to travel down to Cox's Bazar, and we wanted to tell a story about Kutupalong and what was happening at the refugee camps and everything surrounding that. We had 2 days before we had to be up in Dhaka, and one of the teachers in Chittagong said that one of his students would come with us, take us on this trip, and he helped sort out the whole thing. In 2 days, we were down in Cox's Bazar at Kutupalong, telling this story, all from the help of a wonderful like local journalism student. And without the help of people like that, we could never report these stories. So it's such a team effort. In my videos on YouTube, it may seem like I'm the guy behind the camera, I'm shooting it, I'm editing it, but it's the help of the people around me. And this is exactly the same in Lebanon. So I'm on the ground in Lebanon, and I have all these ideas, and I've done my research, and I've listened to the history of Lebanon. I now kind of understand the political landscape, but that's also very different to actually being there. I've never been there before. So my whole thing is to really just focus on listening and asking questions, seeing what people are saying, understanding if the facts on the ground match what we see online. And that's kind of what I did. We had all these visuals that I wanted to capture. I was talking about these visual hooks. So the trash mountain is one of them. I knew that I had to capture something there with my drone. And I wanted to see these beaches as well. I wanted to see the contrast between the beautiful beaches of Lebanon, because Lebanon, you can see in some of those shots, it's a beautiful country. The history is incredible. The waters are wonderful. In the first few days, my friend Giorgio really wanted to showcase that, and he wanted me to see that. And it's a place that I'd love to go back to, despite its flaws and the issues it has. It's a wonderful country that is sadly being affected by all these environmental issues. So I was capturing all these, shooting all these things for a week. And okay, so I use, just to give you a little example, I don't know how many of you guys really care, but this is a camera I use. It's a Sony mirrorless camera. It's a good camera, but it's not like a massive, big, like TV camera. And I would say this is a professional camera, but it's small. I don't like to travel with a big crew, lots of people. For the stories I'm telling, it's small, it's intimate. I'm interviewing people, so I want it to just be like this. But if I didn't have this, I would just be using my phone, or even a small, like sort of portable camera like this, which is a DJI pocket camera, or a GoPro. You know, like you can use anything. Like I said, these things are great. This is great for just like carrying around. It shoots 4K. Most phones do today. I mean, 1080p is enough. And then like a drone. A drone is really good for just capturing a different perspective of what's happening. For example, in Lebanon, it's the contrast of the water in these locations, or the trash mountain, for example, which was like our key visual. But it's all about the story. So I'm on the ground, and every day I'm looking back at my story outline, and I'm looking at, okay, are we capturing the things that I've researched, Or is the story changing? Like, what else do I need? So I'm always open to the story changing. You have to be. When you're on the ground, you don't know what's going to happen. Things may go in a different direction. For example, we went and interviewed a fisherman. He was talking to us for like half an hour, and I thought he was going to tell us how the water was really bad where he was and that he couldn't fish, and that wasn't necessarily the case. In other parts of the country it was. But it's always like, just always be ready to like hear a different side of it. And writing the script, you may notice that I went out into the field and I shot this before I'd actually written the script. I had that story outline, but I didn't write the entire script. And that's because for this particular story, I knew that a lot was going to change. So I had my outline, but I wanted to experience everything before I actually wrote my voiceover. I didn't do lots of it in this video, but I do a bit of vlogging. I still like talk to the camera. So every time I was in a certain location, I would film to the camera. I would talk about what I'm seeing, how I'm feeling, how this may be affecting people. And later on, I will try and include that in the script if it fits. But that's just me documenting what's happening. And I then get back from Lebanon. I have all this footage. I have all these visual hooks that I now know are going to anchor the story. But the visuals alone aren't enough. Yes, you could be the most incredible cinematographer, making the most beautiful visuals, but if there's no story behind that, there's nothing like really gripping you, there's no human connection to what you're talking about, then your B-roll, it doesn't mean a lot. And in the era of Instagram and Facebook, where we're getting all these likes of the most beautiful locations we're in, and the most beautiful B-roll, it kind of warps out a bit. So you can be the most incredible cinematographer, and those people are fantastic. I am not one of them. I can use a camera, I'm pretty good, but I'm not, like, if I need great cinematography, I have a show with Red Bull, I bring somebody with me to help capture that. But the story is that just elevates the story. I keep going back to that. Story is king. That's just like, if you're going to take away anything from this, it's that. But I have all these visuals, so to anchor it. And now we need to actually build that script, okay? So I'm going to share with you my script. And we use this before we go into the edit. Depending on what it is, I will write a script before if I'm not going on the ground. But here is like, this is my go-to script document. It's just a Google Doc. Here you can just see, this is the columns for my voiceover. This is directions of what I think is the shots are going to be, or I'm establishing them. So here, I'm talking about like, okay, overall half of the line, a wide shot of both piles of trash. So I'm just talking about images that could potentially go in here. And then to the right, because this is a documentary journalistic piece, I want to have sources and links to stuff that is going on. So if I'm talking about a mindset here, I mean, this isn't necessarily a fact, but I want to check that this is like being said by certain people, or we talk to scientists in this. I want to make sure their research is there. So we always source our stuff, and then my story editor can go through and double check that to make sure that we have all the facts. And then I just start building out this script in here. And I guess I have to say, I am not a writer. I am dyslexic. I've always struggled with writing. As a kid in school, all I wanted to do was like do creative things to get away from actually being the guy to do writing. But turns out writing is now a big part of my job in writing these scripts. But when I'm filming a video, when you're watching the best videos on YouTube or Facebook, it's a casual conversation. And the whole point of my videos is I'm just trying to explain a complex topic to you in an easy way, just like we were having a conversation face to face. So that's how I try to write my scripts and how I try to change to put it in. So that's a good point to remember. So kind of like I said, it opens with this mountain of trash. So I just have the images here. And then I'm kind of basically saying, oh yeah, okay, look, this looks like a harmless hill. But if you get closer, you can see it's not earth, it's trash. And And throughout this, I will just be writing lines. Here on cam is lines that I've said. I'm like, okay, I'm showing you this, but actually now cutting to a clip of me saying that it stinks on the ground, getting that real on the ground reaction brings more emotion into it. So here I am just throwing in stuff like this. I'm talking about adding other sound bites from news. As I'm writing the story, I'm starting to see it in my head. I'm starting to see these visuals, and this is where I'm just adding like little cues about what we're gonna do. And some of this moves around in the edit, but this is basically how it is played out. I'm here, like I'm talking about juxtaposing the beautiful water with the horrible beaches. And I think we kind of touch on that a bit later. But this is kind of like what a basic script looks like. We go through it, I write it all, and then my story editor, Eleanor, she'll come in here and she'll basically be like, look, Andy, I don't think this quite makes sense. Like, we need to expand on this a little bit more. How would somebody understand this? So we write a couple of versions, we go through this, and this process maybe takes about a week. It definitely helped going to Lebanon first, hearing this story, having it fresh in my mind, and then coming back and writing it. And in this case, I could literally take screenshots from my videos and put them in to illustrate what I was doing and for our writers to see. And it's all about making this script as fluent as possible. So this is what I was talking earlier about the issue with me wanting to cover the more political side of this story, and how that affected the waste crisis. So originally, you'll see here, it's all like stripped out, that I wrote option 2, which is all about, it goes on for, I don't know how many words this is, but this goes on for a while about the political landscape. And yeah, Ava basically comes in here and she's like, I'm sorry, but like this part of the video, it's like way too long and it's very complicated and like also like graphic budgets. And it makes sense, like it wasn't actually needed. So we had to find a way to cut it down. And that's a really great thing about having editors with you, is like, yes, I was on the ground and I'm seeing it and I can help push what is very important, but also the people who weren't there can look at it from an outside point of view and be like, okay, but like, what is the real crux of our story? If we go back to our story outline, what is it we're trying to cover? We're looking at the environmental issues and solutions in Lebanon, and talking for 2 minutes about the Lebanese civil war is, it kind of goes off track a bit. There's other videos if you want to see that, but we just need to have the main points. And that's what we tried to illustrate here. Other things that I think are important in the script that I can quickly go through for you is just trying to weave in important quotes or information. For example, I spoke to Professor Najad Saliba. She's an air quality expert in Beirut. I wrote these lines, but I then had to find documents where she's talking about this. This was an article that she mentioned. I then wanted to make sure this is still in date. So I reach out to her, see if it's right, and just try to get everything, like get our facts on the ground correct. And then this bit here, this is an interesting thing that came from actually being on the ground. There's a scene later in the video where I go to a beach. It's the most polluted beach in Lebanon. It's right next to a factory that is spilling toxic waste into the water. The water was, I've never seen a color so bad, and I've never smelled something so horrendous in my life. It was awful. But I didn't realize how bad it was until I did the research when I got home. And I found this document here. This is basically is this gonna open? This is a report that somebody did about the most polluted beaches in Lebanon. It's all in Arabic, so I unfortunately don't read Arabic, but I translated it, and I was using this graph to see which was the most highly polluted beaches. And it's this one here. I don't know if I can zoom in. but I was right here on Ant 2, A-N-T, which comes up as one of the most highly polluted beaches in Lebanon. Now, that is awful. It's horrible. But I'd been there, I filmed it, and it worked for the story because we were talking about how these public beaches are now being contaminated. So that is a scene that I just shot, happened to be there, and we worked it into the story, and I actually found facts and a way to link it into the piece. So that's a piece that you'll see later on, and it segues quite nicely into other sort of the issues in the water and trash being dumped there. But eventually I've built out this script. I've gone through it with my producer. She's here now, kind of like looking at like she's gone through like a second story outline. There's lots of back and forth, but I now have this script. I have all this footage. We now need to jump into the edit. I'm just going to briefly show you my editing software. I don't know how much editing you guys do. I won't try and go too in depth, but I'm just going to show you what a project looks like if my computer doesn't freeze up, because it's very big and I'm trying to do this stream with you guys. But we've got like 5 minutes left, and then we can go into a Q&A. So if you have more specific editing things, I can talk to you there about it, or you can message me on Instagram afterwards and we can talk there. It helps because I understand not everybody does editing. But I'm going to just try and share my screen with you. And then, okay, hopefully you guys can now see this document or this page. This is my so this is a big project. This is our video. This is me with all these like layers and sounds. So now what I'm trying to do is I have how many days? I've got 6 days of footage. If you can see on the left here, all these folders are full of video, and I now need to work out like what is going to go in this piece, right? So a really quick way of how I break this down is first of all, I make a timeline of all the footage that I filmed. So I go through every single clip and I pick the best bits of that clip and I put them into this timeline here. And I'm like, okay, this is a great shot of this winery in the mountains. It's beautiful, fertile land. They grow grapes, apples. It's amazing, but they don't use any of it. It goes to waste because they import all their food and vegetables and fruit, which is bizarre because they have so many incredible resources here and they just go to waste. So that's great to show that. I go through this, and what I've made here, hopefully you can see here where my cursor is. These are called trash shots. So literally images of rubbish, waste on these beaches. I've put them separately here so I can find them easier in this huge timeline. Above, shots good lines that I filmed on the ground. Here we're talking about how we had to get out money and lots of issues there. It's quite complicated, but these are layered to show, oh, these are really good shots that I can use in my story. So what I do, I have my script next to me and I record a voiceover into a microphone. I start reading the script and then I lay the script out into my timeline. And then I just start adding the visuals over the top. And for me, editing is a big part of the process that I really enjoy. Coming from Snapchat and TikTok, I understand the importance of a quick edit. Now, guys, remember, this is videos for the internet. This is YouTube. So actually, look, this draft of this video ended up being 11 minutes. I thought it was a 9-minute piece. I think it ended up coming in at 11 minutes. But we don't make videos over 15 minutes. That's what we tried to do because it's for the internet. We've got to get across the information. This is Giorgio, by the way. He's our producer who was on the ground. He was amazing. So how do we fit everything in? What's the important beats? And it's all about the pacing and working out what's going to work. And a big way that you can do that is through music. Music is a really great way of setting the tone. There are points where I'm talking, like the intro is quite serious. It's like quite, I want to engage you, but I don't want the music to be like super upbeat, but I also don't want it to be very like doom and gloom. I don't want you to be too like depressed by it. So searching for music is a big part of the job. On the left here, you might be able to see a folder I have got called music, and I have all these different tracks, and I just search through to find what's right. So I'm doing that. I lay all the clips down, and then I start laying B-roll over the top, which is like the scenery shots, the establishing shots. And the most important thing about these is making sure they fit what I'm saying. So if I'm talking about a landfill, for example, I want to show an image of a landfill overflowing. There's no point in showing something that doesn't amplify what I'm saying. So the visuals have to match. And we try to be pushing the narrative all the time. So if I wonder if I can open my voiceover. Okay, these are my voiceover clips. I don't know why there's a big gap here. But you'll see, so these bits here are me talking. The gaps between the talking don't go on for too long. The here is like, okay, maybe like 6 seconds of no talking to try and set the pace, set the mood. But you always want to bear in mind that people could click off your video at any time. So how are you re-engaging people? And using an edit to do that is really important. So that's just a little bit of the editing that's like super important. But when you're done with the edit, and that takes a long time, and building graphics as well, and adding animations to these pieces. And I work with an animator on that, and that's an entire different thing, but that's super important. But after that, you have to get that video out, and titling and thumbnailing, like adding a thumbnail and a title to your video, is so important. This is something that I feel like we could have done better in this video. We could have made a better thumbnail and a better title. I think we should. And arguably, they are as important as the video itself on the internet, because that is how you get somebody to click on your video to watch it. So I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I'm starting a new YouTube channel that's talking all about geography and its effects on the world and all that. Before we even go to film a video, we are looking at story idea and title and thumbnail. What is the title of that video and what is the thumbnail? So we are making them first, because that is how you're going to get people in. Like in your image, how do you tell a story in the image you're using? It's a big topic. Just a couple of like final things before we round out what is important. Faces do really well. If you are part of it, you're part of the story. Having your face very big tells the story, or the person who's involved, and kind of keeping it simple. Like, can you tell your story in an image, in one image, and a little bit of text, and something that would resonate to a wider audience? So it's really important when you're making these videos for the internet, you have the topic. We're talking about Lebanon's waste crisis, but how does that resonate to a wider audience? How does a audience for our example, in Europe and America relate to this piece in Lebanon? What is a factor that everybody can relate to? And for us, it was trash, rubbish, this mountain of trash. So that's just something that's also really important to think about. It's for a lot of people, and for me for a long time, it was the final stage, but it should also come in right at the start. So guys, I know that was a lot, but I thought giving you a real example of a video I've worked on to kind of show you my process would help you to narrate your stories and make better stories online. Thank you for listening to me. I see there's a lot of you guys here. Thank you so much. I'd love to open it up for conversations. I know we have 15 minutes. If we I don't know what your schedule is like, but I have a little bit of time to go over if needs be, or we can talk offline. Yeah, so thank you so much, guys.
Thank you so much, Andy, for giving such a brief, amazing session. We learned a lot. I myself was overwhelmed by your entire talk. So if any of the audience have any questions to the instructor, please raise your hand and he will be happy to answer your questions. So, and yeah, that's it. Does anyone have? So please raise your hand. It will be easier for us to notify that you have a question. Yes, Miss Kabil Khan.
Thanks, Andy.
Hey, Jamil.
Yeah. So it's not a question. So would you like to share the video that you have made with Yusuf whenever you travel to Cox's Bazar? This is available right now to watch?
Yes. I can
very quick.
probably.
Yeah.
I can find it on Facebook and put it in the chat. Would that help?
Yeah. Yeah, you can share that.
Yeah, I can do that for sure.
Okay.
And I'll also share the
All right.
Lebanon piece so people can see.
So Nusrat, so well, if anyone have any questions, so they can ask. I have no question. Exactly.
Right. Andy, I myself have a question towards you. That is, I did watch a lot of videos in YouTube regarding Lebanon, but the open, insightful video that you made has a different perspective of Lebanon that I was not aware of. So the question that I have is that regarding resolution and revelation, did you ever encounter any problems there while shooting the video that you made for the audience? Like, like any threats or any kind of hurdles that you have to face yourself while going there and shooting such a critical situation there?
Yes, they didn't make it into the video, but there's definitely stories afterwards. Yes, and like you make a great point. There is a lot of, and I think this is what's really like as like journalist students or like making documentaries. Like I'm by no means a journalist. I have journalistic aspects in my videos, but a lot of the mainstream media and news cover the conflict that's happening in Lebanon. The reason I was attracted to this piece is there was the trash crisis that everybody talks about in 2015. And then in 2019, there was an economic collapse, the explosion, all these other things. And yes, they are huge, important topics that need to be covered. But the environmental crisis never went away. People weren't talking about it. So I was like, okay, this is a piece that I think give over the backdrop of what's happening now. How is that going? So that's kind of like why we looked at kind of covering that angle. And I mean, Lebanon, the people were wonderful and amazing. Despite the issues they'd gone through, the resilience and the friendliness of them was like incredible. It was fantastic. They were so lovely. But yeah, we did also run into some issues. We were, I don't advise anybody to do this, but when we were flying that drone over the trash shot, we accidentally flew near a army base that didn't show up on the drone radar. So I do not recommend any of this stuff, but we had to have a conversation with those guys about that. And that can be quite frightening. It was fine. They understood what we were doing eventually. But yeah, like these parts of these like places, you have to like make sure you do your due diligence and you're like, so I was with people that kind of knew the landscape, knew these people. And they really helped us like to navigate that situation. So it's like, it's important to like, I can't stress enough having the right people around you.
Thank you. That answers my entire question. Like, yeah. So if anybody has any other questions, please do so. Yes, please unmute yourself and ask the question.
Hi, Andy. I'm not sure if this has been asked before, but I was wondering that what was the most crucial part of documentary filmmaking that you found? And my follow-up would be, how did you tackle it?
Sorry, can you repeat that first bit again?
Sure. So my question was that what, in your opinion, what did you find was the most crucial part of documentary filmmaking? Okay,
the most crucial part, yeah. I really think it's when you're interviewing people and you're listening to people's stories, like, especially me, I'm like, okay, in Lebanon, I had a couple of guys with me, but it's mainly me with the camera and I have my questions and I know what I'm asking, but it's also listening to what they're saying and trying to follow up on that. I have a story, but I'm also really trying to listen to what people are bringing to the conversation and why they're asking that. So I think really being open to listening and hearing different perspectives, especially in Lebanon as well. I try to be as objective as possible. I know I'm with a lot of like, I'm in a place where there's a lot of division, there's a lot of like differences in people's opinions, and I'm trying to also set aside my preconceptions from books or research to just understand a person's point of view, and to try and be as objective as possible. And because I didn't study anything like journalism, so for me, that's like, okay, I'm really trying to see this from both sides, regardless of like my points of view or what I may feel about something. It's like, okay, the thing that fascinates me so much is humans and people's mindsets and how they and what they believe in and like where they've come from and those type of things. So I think it's really like listening to people and trying to just be objective and see how the story builds from that. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Annie. We have a question from another audience. Nirbhik Mullik, please go ahead.
Hey, Andy. My question is for post-production, how do you sift through the videos and find the ones to keep? And where do you get your music that you want to put in your videos?
Great question. So how do I sift through the videos? Okay, so like I said, I have like 6 days of footage from that shoot. What's really important is to be organized. So every night I film, I back up the footage onto a hard drive, and I label it by day. When I get home, I then go through, it's a tedious process, but maybe it takes me like half a day, but I go through each clip and I just pick the best bit of that clip. If the clip's no good, it goes in a bin. I put it on the timeline, and then I have everything there. So then that's like just my main point. So that timeline you saw, it looked long, but that is just the good stuff. That's just the good stuff. And then when it comes to interviews, what I tend to do is I have my assistant transcribe it all. They watch the interview, they write it down. I then read back the transcript because I was there. I remember what was good, or I look for what they said that relates to our story. I highlight it in the script. I'm like, okay, the fisherman here discusses people pushing like oil into the ocean. We need to talk about that. And then in the edit, he finds it, and then we can cut it that way. So that's how I deal with footage. And music, I have a couple of sites, musicbed.com and Epidemic Sounds are two big ones. Free options, YouTube have their own audio library. I think it's just called the YouTube audio library. Lots of free music. You can search by tones. I search by like mood or like genre. So like normally like documentary or like somber. Yeah, that's kind of what I do for music.
We have another question in chat box. That is, how do you choose titles after you're done making the videos?
Yeah, this is tricky. I tried to write a list of like, maybe I can really quickly show you. Okay, let me try and share a screen again. Actually, I don't know where it is. It's probably hidden somewhere. But anyway, I write like, I write like, so the title of this piece in like in our Google Doc is something like Lebanon's waste crisis, but that's not gonna get that many clicks on YouTube. I think Terra Madam might have actually changed it to that. But we just go through like 20 different options. And usually like a title is like how Lebanon's waste crisis got so bad or something like that. And we just do lots of testing, but it's a tricky thing. And it goes back and forth, but I try to write like 20 different title ideas. Like I said, like, I think it should come first. And it's like, what has got the widest appeal? Something you need to think of is like, what would somebody be searching for? It's like, why is Lebanon so full of rubbish? You know, like you wouldn't call it that, but that's what somebody might search. So you need to like use like SEO to like work out what like YouTube may show somebody.
We have another question that is in digital storytelling. What kinds of stories could be enhanced through the use of augmented reality? So
Oh,
the question in
wow.
chat box. So yeah. Do I reiterate the words or is it fine?
Pardon?
Do I reiterate the words again?
No. I understand. Yeah, I get the question. Wow. I mean, a lot. I haven't personally used a lot of augmented reality. I was talking about my friend Yusuf, who is in the Bangladesh story we made. I've shared the link to that too. He's very much into augmented reality and VR. I think a lot could, like, imagine if you could actually be on that beach with me in Lebanon and you could see what it was. You could look around the room and you could see what that was like yourself. I think that would be fascinating. I think there's a lot to do. I still think there's a long way to go. And I'm interested how you would make that into a video that would fit on a platform like YouTube. So I'm excited to see who does that. But yeah, it's definitely not something that I have kind of looked into. I think it's for people, smarter people than me.
There's a person raising his hand. So yeah, go ahead with your question.
Hey, hello, Andy. It has been a very insightful discussion. I had a question. You were saying that you were not you were very creative, and that is why you choose this path to make documentaries, but you didn't go to any film school or anything. But the persons who are not very creative, for example, me, I'm not very creative, but I'm enthusiastic about making. So how would we make films? How do we pick our angles? For example, there are a lot of issues, a lot of things going around, a lot of topics to pick up. So how do you pick up your topics and the angle, the perspective on, or from what perspective you would be making the film? So how do you process this? Though you have already covered a lot of things, but I would like to know the news angle, like not the news angle, the documentary angle picking up thing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would argue that you are creative if you're thinking of all these different ideas. It's just in a different way, you know? Like, I would, stuff that I would like for this YouTube channel I'm starting, I'm looking at bringing on different writers and researchers, people that may be more analytical than me or prefer to be writing. And like, that is I still see that as a creative outlet, or like you're just like, the more you're reading, the more you're researching, like you're finding different topics. And I mean, yes, sure, creativity helps with my videos, but you can definitely like it's also very easy to like edit and stuff now on phones and stuff. So I would focus on what you are really into and what you really like, and just pursue that. And over time, like, try out some editing software and stuff like that. I mean, I hope that answers your question, but I don't think you have to be like, I was a music student. I've been always very artsy, and I just kind of fell into my interests of documentaries. If you told me 6-7 years ago I'd be doing this, I wouldn't believe you. But as I pursued being creative, just these topics came up, and like geopolitics, documentaries, humankind, cultures, that was an interest of mine that just evolved over a couple of years of kind of trying to find out what I really wanted to do. But if you asked me at 21, I would have given you a very different answer. I was in music and I love music, but I now love what I'm doing more.
Thank you, Andy, for your answer to the question. We have another audience asking question, Ishmael Rahim Kabir.
So, hi, Andy. So I have a question that is, which are the best ways to evaluate the efficiency of interactive and visual elements in digital storytelling?
Sorry, you cut out there a little bit. What was it? What was the best way to include visual elements?
No, what was the best way to evaluate the efficiency of interactive and visual elements in digital storytelling?
Okay, like adding, I think it's all like, how do you enhance the words that you're saying? So with graphics, like, this is something I'm still trying to get really like better at, is like, how do I how do I find the information to like draw your focus on screen to a specific word through these different visual imagery or graphics? I hope I answered your question. I'm not sure if I fully got it. But...
Ishmam, do you want to ask any more questions?
No, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Andy. Anybody has any other question? Well, I have a question to you again, Andy. I wouldn't bother you asking. So you said the story is something that you mostly focus on, right? So have you ever felt conflicted with yourself while making videos? Are like more in taking shots and the visuals? Have you ever digressed yourself from making the plot, like from the plot, while focusing on the visuals and the edits and the shots? Have you ever felt conflicted with your own self?
For sure, yeah. There's definitely like, as a person who is telling these stories on the ground, and I'm like recording. So like I said, I'm always like recording my reactions to it. Like there is a fine line between, am I adding clips just of like what my thought is on this situation, or like, am I moving away from actually like telling the narrative that I'm there for, right? So it's like, it's straddling a fine line. It's like, where is it? Like, so there are parts in this piece where I was, or like in the edit, where I was like, okay, I probably shouldn't include this bit because this is just more about my reaction to something that I have not been a part of, or I'm not really involved in. So like, where is that? And I think that's what the edit is really good for. Like you can like bring yourself back to that part of the story. Like people example, we went to Beirut and we saw the explosion and the cameras were on the whole time and it was horrible. And I saw these, just like what had happened to this city. And it's heartbreaking, but that doesn't elevate the video having me, a Westerner who is not related to that situation at all, like sharing my experience with you in it. It takes away from the story, so that doesn't make the cut. But also I think like having, so like, yeah, like I'm saying, it's a fine line and you got to make sure you're on the right side of it. But I really think YouTube and these platforms benefit from having just a regular person on the ground helping tell these stories, but it's making sure you like you find the right place to like be in, you know. That's why I try to kind of just be the guide, asking questions and kind of sharing, trying to describe what I'm seeing, how like what this place is like, but not trying to take away from the main focus of what this piece is, or any piece.
Thank you, Andy. That was a very insightful session, and that really clarifies my question. So now we will play the promo of DIMFF. And thank you so much again, Andy Burgess, for the amazing session that you have given us. There is this form in the group chat, so please do fill this out for the evaluation. And also for the more information of DIMFF, please visit Instagram and LinkedIn for further information. Today, it's like we have the third day of the festival. We will be premiering a movie that is directed by MD Hassan Mahmoud. The name of the film is Mohin. And tomorrow will be our closing ceremony of the festival. So do tune with us tomorrow and also today. If we have any other feedbacks, or we should be closing the session right here. Thank you everyone for being part of this masterclass session. It was wonderful to have all of you here. I will remind you again that there is a feedback form in the group chat, so please do fill it up. And for further information about DIMFF, please visit Instagram and the LinkedIn. Thank you all. The link, the feedback, his paper is given in the chat box, so please do fill it up. Thank you all for being here. We will be closing the session here now.